I looked and I looked. I went to the refugee camps because, of course, she had gone. We knew she had gone into a camp. In August of 1948, the Israelis destroyed her village. And we knew she would have gone into a camp. That's what happened to people. And I tried to find her. Eventually, I found her grandson. I did. And I found him living in Bethlehem. And he retraced for me her footsteps from when we left her, how she stayed in our house waiting for us to come back. But of course, we never could come back, and she was eventually thrown out. And then she and her family had to move, and they kept going on the move, being moved from one place to the other, eventually ending up in caves outside Bethlehem. They lived in a cave. And then they finally got out, and she lived in a house. And until the 1980s, she kept telling her relatives, please look for the Karmis, please, I want to see them again. And my father, by then, was a well-known broadcaster on the BBC, so she used to hear his voice. And she used to say, surely we can find him, surely we can find him. And it was, believe me, it broke my heart when her grandson told me the story. But I never saw her again. And the thought that maddened me was, there she was. In the 1980s, for God's sake, I was an adult. I could have found her if only I'd known, if only she could have got them to look for us. What did they know? You know, how could they look us up on Google? And so there we are. So I did know that she died, and roughly when she died.
We're talking to Palestinian writer, author, Ghada Karmi. Her book after In Search of Fatima is called Married to Another Man, Israel's Dilemma in Palestine. Why married to another man?
Well, you may well ask, and I know this has mystified a lot of people, the title, and it's been misunderstood. People have thought it was about matrimonial infidelity. It's not, of course. It's a very serious book. The reason it's called that is that I've taken that out of an anecdote that at the end of the 19th century, when the Zionists in Europe, Jews, group of Jews who formed the Zionist movement, held a very big congress, a conference in Basel in Switzerland, at which they decided that the only way to solve the Jewish question in Europe, the question of persecution, was for the Jews to have a state of their own. So they said, we have to create a Jewish state that can be a refuge for us, where we can be normal people, where we don't have to be hounded, persecuted, etc. And they decided that that state was to be in Palestine. Now, they didn't know what Palestine was like. They were sitting in Europe, they didn't know anything about it, so they sent a couple of rabbis to this place called Palestine, and they said, let us know if this is a suitable place. The rabbis went, they had a look, and they sent back this message to Vienna. They said, the bride is beautiful, but she is married to another man. Now, of course, it's clear what they were saying is, yes, the land is very suitable, it's wonderful, but it's full of other people. It's already taken. And of course, it was taken by my ancestors. I mean, that's who it was. That's who the other man was. And if you think about it, that has been the basis of the conflict ever since, that the Zionists wanted a territory free of non-Jews in a territory full of non-Jews, and therefore they had to get rid of the non-Jews in order to make it a territory for Jews. Now, those non-Jews, i.e. the Palestinians, of course didn't want to be dispossessed. They resisted being dispossessed, and hence you have a conflict. So, in summary, married to another man, had the Zionists said, this is indeed married to another man, we can't go here because the land is already married, we can't be bigamous, we're going to move on, we're going to look for somewhere else. They didn't. They were determined to do it, and they did it at the most enormous cost to us as Palestinians, because we were dispossessed and displaced in order to make room for the Jewish state, and of course it had a tremendous effect on the whole Arab region.
You advocate a one-state solution. Can you talk about that and why?
Yes, look, I wrote the book Married to Another Man because I felt very strongly that, yes, as Palestinians, we will always mourn what happened to us. We mourn what is happening to us now. But we really have to try and see how this can be solved. And that has to come from us, because we are the people the most affected by this conflict. We are the people with the greatest stake in a solution which lasts. And I want to emphasize this. It is entirely possible to think up solutions for this conflict that are temporary, that might work for a short while. There's no point in that. We want a solution that will be permanent and that will be durable. And it seemed to me, and in the book, I tried to do it by taking the reader along with me, to explain the conflict, to see how so many attempts had failed in the past, to explain why they had failed, and to show, therefore, that there is, in fact, only one way forward. And that is not to partition the land of Palestine, not to fight over percentages, not to have Israel saying, I'm going to keep my colonies on the West Bank, to hell with the rest of you, and I'm going to keep Jerusalem, and you people can't come back to your homes. No, don't partition the land. We have already got a Israeli Jewish community living in the land. We have already Palestinians who live in the same land, but most of their relatives don't live in their homeland because Israel doesn't allow it, and those people have the right to return. Therefore, how are you going to do it? There's only one way you can do it. That is if it is one state for all its citizens, not a Jewish state, not an Islamic state, not a Christian state, a secular democratic state. That's the answer.
We'll continue with our conversation with Dr. Ghada Karmi after the break. Tomorrow on our broadcast, a discussion on 1948 with Israeli historian Benny Morris. We'll also be joined by Tikva Honig-Parnas. She fought for Israel in the 1948 war. But first, to break with the Palestinian hip-hop group Dam.
ماكلني وانا عايش في بلادي ليش ارهابي عشان دمي مش هادي حامي عشان رافع راسي وارض بلادي قتلوا حبايبي انا لحالي اهلي اتشردوا راح اضلي انادي انا مش ضد السلام السلام ضدي علي بده يقضي تراثي بده يمحي واللي بيحكي كلمه بيشد وراه همه بيكون زلمه تعملوا منه رمه ومين انتو لسه امتى كبرتوا اضلوا قديش قتلتوا قديش يتمتوا عماياتنا بيبكوا ابياتنا بيشكوا اراضينا بيخطفوا انا بقولكم من انتو كبرتوا بدلع احنا كبرنا بفقر من كبر في وسع ومن كبر في جحر صار في داعي عملتوا منه اجرام وانت يا ارهابي بتناديني ارهابي مين ارهابي انا ارهابي كيف ارهابي وانا عايش في بلادي مين ارهابي انت ارهابي ماكلني وانا عايش في بلادي امتى ببطل ارهابي لما تضربني كف وادي خدي تاني كيف تتوقع مني اشكر الاذاني تعرف ايش انت قولي كيف بدك اياني راكع ركبي ويديم رباطات.
Who's the Terrorist, performed by the Palestinian hip-hop group Dam in Brooklyn earlier this week, will be joined by one of its members in a minute. But now we go to the conclusion of my interview with the Palestinian author and physician Ghada Karmi. I asked her if she thinks proposing a one-state solution hurts the chances of Palestinians because it's less attainable than a two-state solution.
The one-state solution is the only just solution for the Palestinians. So if we want to look at solving this problem from the point of view of justice, we have no alternative except the one state. Justice means that the dispossessed shall no longer be dispossessed. That's justice. If what you're saying to me is, will it hurt the chances of the Palestinians getting something out of the present situation, that's a different question. I would have said to you that I can understand that position if there were any evidence that they are going to get something. Now, I'm looking around me and I'm imagining that our intelligent audience is also looking at things like maps and is looking at what Israel does and how Israel behaves, and can only come to the conclusion that the creation of a Palestinian state is totally out of reach. And I'm sorry to be blunt, but I think we have to be quite open about this. We mustn't go on playing this game of the emperor's new clothes. You know, everybody pretending they're seeing something which isn't there. There is no territorial basis on which a Palestinian state can now be set up. Although I fully understand that there is an international consensus that the two-state solution is the way forward, I fully understand that a lot of work has gone into this. And in proposing the one-state solution, I'm not being flippant. And I am not saying that all the work and all the goodwill and all the effort that's gone into the two-state solution are trivial